impressed. But tell us a little bit. I know, it kind of started as being a single mom. Tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are now.
So I found myself 19 years ago standing in my best friend's bathroom, staring at a little bitty stick, counting the minutes that seemed like hours, which I know many of us have. And then there they were, two little bitty pink lines that changed the course of my life forever. And as I stood there waiting, I just really had a peace come over me that I had never really experienced before, that it would be okay. I didn't know what that looked like, but I had a piece of it'll be okay. And over the next 9 months, the Lord just lavished me in a way that I had never experienced before. Not because he wasn't there and not because he wasn't trying, but because up to that point, I had never let him. I had held him at an arm's distance. I knew him. I was raised in the church. I watched other people walk closely with the Lord, but I didn't know him personally like I knew I should. And so over the next several months, he just connected me with so many amazing people that honestly could have turned their back on me. My parents, they could have said, I'm sorry. Like, you knew what you were getting into. We're not going to give you any support. You're on your own. See you later. Because at that time as well, I had just finished cosmetology school and was going into my career. And so they could have easily turned their back on me. But instead, they didn't. They unconditionally loved me and helped me find support through a church at the time that's still around today. And I can't say enough wonderful things about them. They loved on me like no one had loved on me before. They didn't care that I was unwed. They didn't care that I carried around this guilt and shame, because they looked at me and they saw potential. They saw a girl that needed to feel loved and to be poured into. And they took the time to do that, which really meant a lot to me, because then I was able, through such generosity of mentoring, financially, people helped me. I got back into church and other mentor programs. It made such an impact on my life that I was able to make the best decision for my son and myself. He is now 19 and is thriving, and I couldn't be more proud of who he is. And it just really meant a lot to me during those months, and honestly, even the first, several years, because then after that, I got introduced to the single parent group at Gateway Church here in Southlake, and through their program as well, just being able to be poured into week after week, and someone genuinely wanting my success really meant a lot to me. And it helped me find my footing. It helped me find who I was. It helped me have the courage to keep going when potentially I could have been devastated, and I could have, just fallen down and spiraled down a direction that wouldn't have been healthy. But instead, I was placed on a path of success. And so that's really kind of what started my journey of parenting. So that's a little bit of my story.
Yeah. Okay. Well, keep going, because then you end up meeting your husband and having a lot more kids, a couple of more, which are all so beautiful. And sometimes you bring them up to the office and they look like all mini yous. They're so cute.
Thank you. Yes, we did. We ended up meeting a few years later, and that's just another amazing God story in itself, because as single moms, we go through our minds of, how am I going to tell somebody that I'm a single parent? And when do I introduce my child to them? When does, how does that interaction work? Because I never wanted my future spouse, or someone that I was dating, let's say that, to get attached to my son and then it not work out, but they felt like they couldn't leave, or they were stuck because they didn't want to hurt Braden, and vice versa. I didn't want him to see if I started dating, like, why does mommy keep having these, boyfriends, which come in and out, which thank the Lord I didn't. I only have one. And so it just organically worked out that he and I met. Let me back up just for a second. And I'll say this. People used to tease me because I never went out on dates, because I was extremely when most of them know, when you're like that, you are so vulnerable that at least me, I became reclusive and selective on who I was going to go on a date with because I didn't want to waste my time. I had so much going on my plate as far as trying to get my life in order so that I could be the best, eventually wife to someone, employee and mother that it didn't take, my focus wasn't on dating per se. And so I kind of come to the Lord and was like, you're going to literally have to just put him in my lap. And like figuratively speaking, that really almost happened because we met each other at DFW airport boarding a plane and sat next to each other, and the rest is history after that.
Wow. That's so awesome.
So I think that goes to show just with the Bible verse, it says, in his mind, a man plans his course, but the Lord orders his steps. And that in my mind, I had planned what my life would look like. In my mind, I'd planned like all these things. And he then, behind the scenes, before I ever met my husband, before I ever met my future mother-in-law, before I met any of that, he had been working on their hearts behind the scenes. And I didn't know it. Like, for instance, my son was in one of my mother-in-law's Sunday school class, and she would seek after this little boy. And just
Stop.
the Lord
goodness.
cares and tenders about the tiniest little things like that behind the scenes before we ever even know it. So it is something that I'm passionate about is, which we all are, I believe, is when you're really listening and on the course with the Lord, you don't have to be frantic of, oh my gosh, I need to think about this. Oh my goodness, I need to think about this. Like I never thought about my in-laws. Like, how would they take a son, a grandson? And I never thought about certain dynamics of those things. But it goes to show, because I was so focused on the Lord and seeking his heart for myself, that he worked out all the details in the process. And I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have to worry about, where my identity was or where his security would be, because I was so focused on what I knew the Lord had put in my heart that he just works out all the little bitty things that we never even think about. And so sometimes I think we get so caught up in the details and the little bitty things, and am I praying enough? Am I doing enough? And it becomes works-based, that we forget that if we just rest in the Father's love and we really fervently seek after him, and we have good counsel surrounded with us and around us, that nothing but good can come from it.
That's so true.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's only really when you reflect back on all the things, when you start realizing, like, during the time you just kept waiting and waiting and waiting for God to, move, especially with bringing your future husband, like he was behind the scenes and doing things. And like you said, preparing his heart, preparing your heart for that moment for y'all to, for your lives to collide. And so even when we think he's not doing anything, he is always doing something.
Yeah.